Hey everyone, welcome back to another Beyond the Book. Today we're going to be talking about something that we've already kind of mentioned on the channel in a different book review, but this one's going to be a little bit different. We are talking about Twilight. Again. This one is more of a compare and contrast between the book and the movie. I'm only going to touch on a few brief things, mainly because it has been a minute since I've read the book. I was going to reread it, and then I just thought there's so many other books I want to read besides Twilight. But it has been trending because it just came back onto Netflix. They put the entire series on Netflix, and people have just been going nostalgia crazy over it. Not gonna lie, I was tempted to like binge watch it and just relive like the silly moments of me in high school, like loving these characters. And then I thought, I'm not the same person I was in high school, and I don't think I really enjoy those characters anymore. But I thought it was really interesting to think about the similarities and the differences between the book and the movie. So here we are doing a Beyond the Book so that I can kind of touch on a little bit of what I was thinking about and share it with you guys. I would also really love to hear your own thoughts of if you like the book or the movie better, and why. You know, I'm always interested in why people like the book better or why they like the movie better. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the bigger plot differences between the book and the movie. So in the book, Bella doesn't meet Jacob at the beginning. He doesn't show up with her truck as this present, and they, realize they're long-lost BFFs. So in the book, Charlie actually has her truck at the very beginning as a gift to her, welcoming her to Forks, and Jacob doesn't show up until later. Now, while that seems like a pretty minor difference, I think that it definitely helps develop Bella as a character, showing up, she immediately has a friend coming to Forks. In the movie, just right away, instant friend with Jacob. Whereas in the book, because he's not there right away, you get to see her kind of develop that awkward new kid, persona of everyone knows who she is, but she doesn't know anyone. She doesn't have any friends yet, and she's just the center of attention, and she's really, really awkward about it. So I think that's an important point in the plot for later character development. Even though it sounds kind of like a little nitpicky thing, I do think it is important for later on. Now, another big plot thing that I found more interesting rather than a detriment or a benefit because it works in both scenarios. In the book, Bella actually cooks for her father. She's always making him lunches, making dinner, making sure that, there's food in the house, and she kind of takes on more of a parenting role for herself and taking care of her dad, rather than in the movie when they're constantly at the diner. They go to the diner every day, everyone knows them there, everyone knows the orders. It doesn't really make a big difference either way. It kind of shows that Charlie, doesn't really know how to be a dad, in the sense of being a caregiver. He's very much just we could go to the diner or you could cook dinner. So either way, I think that one is a little bit less, but it is very interesting for Bella's character because in the book that kind of makes her feel different than what it makes her feel like in the movie, and I'll actually get to that in a little bit when I talk about some character differences. The final thing that I would really like to talk about is the final battle between James and the Cullen family. I thought it was really, really interesting that in the book, Bella doesn't hear or see anything about the fight. She doesn't know that James is dead until they tell her when she wakes up in the hospital. She doesn't see what's happening because she actually passes out and all she can hear is Edward. In the film, we kind of get a little bit more. This is an instance where I like what they did with the movie. I think it made it more dynamic, a little bit more interesting. But we actually get to see Alice rip James's head off, which I think is pretty intense. I thought it was a pretty neat way to include that he's dead without being yeah, he died off screen, because no one likes it when they die off screen. Harry Potter, I'm looking at you. Anyway, that was a really nice difference between them where, again, it works for both. In the book, it makes sense because she wouldn't have seen it, and, we're going through the story through her point of view. So if she didn't see the fight, there's no way that we would know what's going on. But in the movie, it's a little bit different where, she kind of rolls over and sees the flames. And then it's really interesting in her hospital room, the TV behind her, they're actually replaying that scene again. So I thought that was a nice touch of them just showing that battle, showing the fight happening. Okay, really briefly, I'm going to touch on some character differences. So first and foremost is Bella. Of course, she is the main character in the book. We're looking at it through her perspective, her point of view. So everything that's happening, we're experiencing it through her. So with Bella in the book, she comes across as a very high anxiety type person. When she's going to the prom, she's next to tears. Like, she just really doesn't want to go. She doesn't really like going out all that much. She would much rather be small group. Those are very, very indicative of social anxiety. So it gives her a lot of personality that's relatable, especially to high school kids, because we're all riddled with anxiety. So it's very easy for us to relate of like, girl, I feel ya. I didn't want to go to prom either. Whereas Bella in the movie, she doesn't feel as much as an anxiety character. She just feels aloof. Like, she just doesn't want to be there. She doesn't really care what's going on. Like, she says, no, I don't want to go to prom. And then they put her in a dress and ship her off to prom. And she's like, okay, guess I'll go to prom. You know, she just doesn't care. Like, she doesn't really care about her friends. You know, she, like, doesn't really want to hang out with them. In the book, she hangs out with her friends a lot. Like, they're a flagstone for her of, like, holding her to earth, you know, basically. Anytime her mind starts to flutter away and she starts making herself anxious, her friends are like, it's cool, we've got you. Whereas in the movie, her friends are kind of mean. They just, like, they're not actual friends. That's the feeling I get anyway. It's always like, well, we're friends because we have to be friends, versus, like, actually caring about one another. But Bella's whole personality in the movie of just being aloof, not caring, and then when her and Edward get together, she's just boyfriend crazy. She doesn't want to see her friends. She doesn't want to see her family. All she wants is to be with Edward and to be with the Cullens, and that's kind of weird. But anyway, two very different characters for Bella Swan between the book and the movie. Again, we have one character that's super anxious, super filled with anxiety, and then another that just, guess I'm in a vampire movie. Like, she just didn't care. Edward, it has a very similar difference as Bella does. In the book, he's very cautious. He's very much like, you know, I don't want to touch you. I don't want to lose control. You know, he's very much like, I want to protect you, and I'm going to do everything in my power to do that. You know, I want to be with you, but I don't want people to see us, because then they're going to start asking questions, and that's going to put you in danger. In the movie, he's just like, you know, got his arm wrapped around her, and like, he doesn't really seem to give shit. He's just like, well, they're going to ask questions, so might as well give them, you know, questions to ask. He is rather careless and in a way kind of creepy, if that makes sense. Yeah, because like when he walks into the forest and has her follow him into the forest like a serial killer, that whole scene didn't happen in the book. In the book, like, he saved her from the thugs at Port Angeles, and that's when she found out he's a vampire. There was no, like, wandering into the woods scene. Also, him creeping into her bedroom to try and kiss her, that's pretty weird in the movie. Like, you should probably call someone about that and put locks on your windows. Whereas their first kiss in the book took place outside his car, you know, outside the truck. They, you know, he kissed her for the first time. So it was kind of like out in the open. It gives you that sense of safety, you know. There was no like weird break-in moment where it's like, hey, Charlie's in the next room, so if I kill ya, at least he'll hear it. So a lot of really weird things where the movie kind of makes Edward feel like a weird stalker. Whereas in the book, he did have a lot of, like, charming moments where he was very gentlemanly, and you genuinely had the feeling he wanted to protect her rather than just not giving a shit. The Cullens as a whole are very different in the book versus the movie. In the movie, they're almost, like, cult-like. They all wear their family crest. Like, they really emphasize that they're siblings, but they're, like, together. So they make, like, a weird incestual, like, relationship references. It's just really uncomfortable. Whereas in the book, they were like, yeah, they're all adopted, and they're in a relationship, but it's cool, they're not actually siblings. So it was a little bit more specified in the book. It felt less creepy, less cultish. Rosalie also wasn't as much of a bitch in the book, if you ask me. She just, like, in the movies really emphasized how much she didn't like Bella. Now, Jacob in the book, honestly, like, he wasn't my favorite character in either one. I felt like he was pretty flat. But I do know that there was some aesthetic differences. Like, in the book, in the very first book, Twilight, he was very, like, tall and gangly and just, like, you know, a teenage boy. He was very skinny and, like, you know, gangly, if I'm remembering correctly, like, just string bean like. Whereas in the film, like, it's Taylor Lautner, so he already has a build, and he's not quite as tall as described in the book, which, again, you can't always help that. You know, you can't really exactly have him 6'7", you know, he's not that tall. But just some of the aesthetic differences, again, not really the biggest deal. He's actually pretty forgettable to me. I do know that, like, the moment they meet, which I had mentioned earlier, wasn't supposed to be until later. So, like, in the film, Taylor Lautner's character, Jacob, he shows up almost immediately. So in the beginning, Bella rolls into town and Jacob is there with her truck, like, here you go, remember me, we were BFFs. And so she immediately has a friend in the movie, which I don't really think plays to the character as well, because then when she's like, oh, I feel so lonely, I feel out of place, you're like, hey, well, what about your best friend that you just met again after a long period of time that was, like, ready and waiting for you? Whereas in the book, he doesn't show up until her and her friends go to the beach. So he shows up at La Push with his friends, and then is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're in town. And that's when they meet again, you know, they reconnect. So she has already established a new friend group when she reconnects with Jacob, which makes her feel more comfortable and almost in a way more confident with her social skills because she's already with her friends. So I think that does play into the book versus the movie a little bit in timing, where having him show up immediately versus having him show up later with her development. So it plays into that social anxiety versus aloofness. One thing I can say for the movie in its favor, because again, whenever I first watched it, I liked it. You know, I had merch. I can't help it. But it had one hell of a soundtrack. You know, whoever did the music for the movie, I don't have their name, I should have looked it up, but I didn't. They did such a good job. There was, like, so many songs that just were killer. Like, I love Muse. I have always loved Muse. So to hear, like, Supermassive Black Hole playing, and especially choosing the scene for, like, the baseball scene, I think that was a really, really good decision, and the music fit the vibe of the movie very, very well. I couldn't have imagined it being any different. So, but speaking of the music, that actually reminds me of just one thing that was a little bit different between the book and the movie that is actually kind of a big deal. And that's Bella's Lullaby. So in the movie, they do have, like, a classical piece, and you have that weird scene where, like, Edward and Bella are sitting at the grand piano, and, like, the smoke is all over the place, and it's just weird, and it's like, okay, are you in a dungeon? Like, because Edward's a creeper in the movie, so, you know, who knows? But it's never referenced that it's Bella's lullaby. It's never referenced that Edward wrote it for her, which is a very romantic gesture, like, in general. You write someone a song, like, that takes time and skill and talent, and I feel like it's very, very important to, you know, at least reference, hey, I wrote this for you. Whereas in the book, it was a very big deal that he composed her a song. He wrote it just for her. And music in general was a pretty big deal. Clair de Lune, I think, is what replaced Bella's Lullaby in a sense in the film, because she goes into his bedroom and he has this wall of CDs and she pulls out Clair de Lune. So I feel like that was kind of a cheap replacement other than, you know, composing a song that would be Bella's Lullaby. Or at least having a moment of Edward writing this song for her. which I love Claire de Lune, so I'm glad they put it in, but I think that it was kind of like a cheap replacement for Bella's Lullaby. But other than that, I really want to know what you guys think of the book versus the movie. Have you read the book? Did you enjoy the book better? Do you like the movie better? If you've only ever watched the movie, why haven't you read the book? You know, I'm always curious. It could just be as simple as you don't really like to read, or that you couldn't get into, you know, Stephenie Meyer's writing style, because she does have a very unique writing style that is very specific to her, which I can definitely see being difficult for some people to read. But other than that, I really want to know what you guys think and any differences that, you know, you notice between the book and the movie, because I know there's a lot of them, but I just lose my train of thought a lot. So those were just the big ones that I saw that kind of get under my skin with character development and some plot. But I really want to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments down below, and also let me know what you're reading. I want to read it too, because I love to read. So I'll see you guys the next time in our next Beyond the Book. Talk to you soon. Toodles!